My relationship with my mom, as probably many kids are, has always gone up and down. Yeah, I was in a senior year of college. Had my life planned out ahead of me, about to graduate, and found out that a girl gave me a call, said, "Hey, by the way, I think you're going to be a dad." Within 3 weeks, I lost $1 million of contracted revenue.
Do you think that because of AI, will you have maybe only 50 employees doing the same work that right now 600 people are doing? What is brand from your perspective?
I think brand or branding is...
Okay, Russ, thanks for being with me. You have a very cool background, I must say. I'm sorry our background is not as cool as yours. What's the one, the black and yellow one in the back there? Mimrus? What does it say there?
Oh man, these are all my little
this
knickknacks. My office this is the Green Day album, Nimrod, and then I have
Nimrod, I couldn't read
a
it.
plaque from Disney. Walt Disney had this plaque in Disneyland, gifts and accomplishments, and of course all the books that I actually now have piles on the floor because I ran out of bookcase space.
Oh, that's so great. We have so much to talk about. So we will, and I will give a background in the beginning and I'll introduce you properly. But I just want to jump right in. So Ross, you had such a fascinating life, and I'm going to share more and more and go different directions. But, I was reading about you and preparing, and give me 3 major milestones in your life.
Man, only 3.
Yes.
Well, I think the first is when growing up with a single mom, hardworking teacher, leading our family and trying to navigate life. My relationship with my mom, as probably many kids are, has always gone up and down, probably down the most when I was a kid and up the most now that I'm an adult.
Where was it? Where were you born?
Yeah, I was born in Arizona. I'm a 3rd generation Arizona, and I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. So we grew up there, lived there until I was 18, and then moved to the Phoenix area to go to Arizona State University. But yeah, I mean, that moment, it was many moments. It was my childhood. I saw someone commit her life and passion to a career. She's kind of one of those fading generations of like working somewhere for decades and, paying her dues and earning a retirement. But I knew for me, seeing, what she went through, that she also struggled a lot. There was a lot of limitations, especially towards the latter years of her career with, being employed and working for the States and all of these things. And so I think at the back of my mind, while I absorbed, her work ethic and her drive, and I was so grateful for everything she did for me and my sister, I also was like, man, I really don't want to be a teacher. Like, I really got to figure out something else.
Was it more about being a single mom, or was it more about being a teacher and struggling as someone who works in a big system? That kind of was a pivotal milestone, because I asked you about milestones. You said the reason you chose this one. And by the way, from my experience, the first answer is always the right answer, because that's the one that came to your mind, right? So was it about her being a single mom raising 2 kids, or was it more about like the teacher and the structure of that kind of an employer lifestyle?
Well, it's actually funny you bring that up, because it is related to my second moment. I would say overall, it was really the limitations of what could be possible in a career. Seeing how tightly things, were originally, and then especially over 30 plus years, regulations, requirements, all the things for very little pay. It was like, man, it was truly a passion of hers, and there would be no way she would have done it for so long if she just wasn't, one, amazing at it, and 2, a passion. The single parenting thing actually came around to be led to my second moment, which was when I became a dad at the age of 22, unexpectedly. So
22,
I was in my senior year
wow.
of college. Yeah, I was in a senior year of college. Had my life planned out ahead of me, about to graduate, and found out that a girl gave me a call, said, "Hey, by the way,
Good news and bad
you're
news.
going to be a dad." Yeah, good news and bad. Well, she wasn't even that. It was just like I hadn't talked to her in a while, so and I had about 2 months to wrap my head around that. So she was 7 months pregnant, and thankfully though, that was the biggest blessing I could have ever had, because it changed the course of my life. Having my oldest daughter, Maddox, who's now 20, she's a junior at university. So she's like doing great in life. But I saw, sort of similar to my mom, hey, I'm at the time a single dad. I'm trying to spend more time. I'm trying to manage my time, control my life a little bit more. And I had a couple of, what we say traditional employment jobs for agencies and Apple. And I was like, man, this PTO thing sure does suck. Like how do I get around this? How do I make money? And what I thought at the time was have a lot of freedom. Let's start my own business. And, I was able to accomplish the money part. The freedom and time thing was a little less than I expected or really knew at the time. But that decision, changed my course from working for someone to then creating my own paths and all the ups and downs that go along with that, creating, being an entrepreneur and starting businesses and failing and everything there.
Can I ask a question about it? Because I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
It didn't show up on the radar. And if you don't mind, I'll ask, and you can always say, hey, let's move on, and you don't have to answer because this is look, there's no doubt I have 3 kids. You have a 20-year-old, and there's no doubt it's the most extraordinary gift looking in perspective, right? But because we have such a group of young people also listening to us, I'm sure it was quite shocking in the moment when it actually happened. Did you have a ongoing relationship with the mother of the kid, or it just, you're courteous to each other?
So you can call it dating. We were together very briefly, a few weeks at most. And that was that, it was young 20s, how things are back in those days. And so when she reached out and I found out I was going to be a dad, it really was like, for lack of a better term, like starting a new business together. Like we really didn't have a relationship to navigate. We were just sort of coming into this both like, yeah, let's do this. And so really, we weren't without challenges over 18 plus years, but at the end of the day, I found it to be a very amicable, like putting the relationship of the child first type of relationship. And so now I know many people, that have not had that luxury or have, partners or exes that are extremely challenging to deal with. And so for me, I knew as a child, because my mom was single, I always had this thing in the back of my mind, hey, when it's my time to be a parent, I'm going to be a parent. Like I'm going to go all in. I'm going to make sure that I really commit to this and step into the role in ways that I didn't have with my father. And so for that moment to come, although a lot earlier than expected, I already knew what my commitment was. I already knew that was going to be my time to shine, if you will. And so, I was then married after having Maddox. Since then, me and my ex have gotten divorced, and I had 2 kids with her. So 3 total daughters at the age of now 42, and the same rule applies. And actually, thankfully, my relationship with my ex is also really productive and positive, and we work really well to be parents. And so,
wow, that's
I don't know.
amazing.
I think for me, it's like whether it's your job or being a parent, which is a job, or whatever. How do you put in the right amount of focus and effort to do the best at what responsibilities you currently have? And,
So
and that's how I've approached it all.
Well, it's fascinating. If you don't mind, I'm going to push back, and not because I have opinion about it, because I'm really triggered or curious about what you're saying. And so that's why I love podcasts, because you never know what direction you're going to go. I have a whole list of things we're going to talk about, but I'm baffled, and I don't want to move forward before we talk about it. So here's my very limited understanding, okay? But when I hear that, you say it's like a business, it's like, yes, but every business I created in the past, I was involved with, I had a choice in the matter. When you got the phone call, yes, you did absolutely had a choice. What kind of father do you want to be in that kid you didn't know yet life? And it's different than being married and saying to your partner, say, hey, we love each other, let's have kids together. I think that's a different progression. I think again, I'm not speaking from experience, but it's a very different thing when you get a phone call and say, hey, by the way, you don't have a say in the matter. I am pregnant, 7 months, you're going to be a dad. It doesn't happen very often, right? So I'm curious, what was the thing you said to yourself, or what's the process you went to say, yes, it wasn't my choice, but now, as of now, I am choosing it. I'm flipping the coin.
Yeah.
It is my choice. I am a dad. And not only that, I'm going to be the greatest dad possible.
Well, I think unfortunately, many people treat that responsibility as a choice, whether or not they can show up or not. And I think society is riddled with examples, and we probably know people whose parents, either father or mother, decided not to show up to some extent or all. So I think for me, and this is a pattern that I've had my whole life, is I spend a lot of time thinking about the future and thinking about, what will my commitments be, or what do I want to do, or how do I want to show up for if and when those scenarios come, I feel prepared. And I don't think that this was any different of a situation. The timing of it was unexpected for sure, but I had thought about it, and I think for me that's like one of the key characteristics for navigating all of life's uncertainties is actually spending time thinking about what those might be and how you will respond and what you would do, and so I felt very prepared for it, even though it was such a sudden piece of news.
Wow.
Namely because I had thought about it, and I had already made that choice whenever it would have come, and then had that choice again several times. And, I am getting married again, and I'm going to be a stepfather, and same deal. I have a choice now to lean into someone else's life. And for me, that is like, it's about preparation, and that can be, you can do that in your personal life. You can do that in your relationships. You can do that in your professional life.
Yeah.
Often we just don't.
Yeah, look, I'm really moved by this conversation. I didn't know it's going to go that direction. And I'll tell you what really moves me here is sometimes I have, and I think a lot of people who are listening and people who I interact with in my business, we have this illusion that we have control. And we take the action to control as much as we can. We understand that we can control everything, but when you build a business or when you go into a relationship, I control, but sometimes you don't. And it's the kind of like second when you say whether I have control or I have the illusion of control, I'm responsible. It is my call. I'm going to be the best dad in the world. I'm going to be the best founder in the world. I'm going to be the best CEO in the world. It's really beautiful. So really thank you for sharing that. So we have a third, but we have a third milestone. So what's the third one?
Man. Well, my childhood, I have my life path of being a parent. I would think, it is probably the most cliche thing to share, but it really rings true for me. It is actually kind of the sad and slow failure of my first businesses. For me, I launched into entrepreneurship, building creative agencies at the super young age, early 20s, almost into my 30s, and thought I knew everything. Couldn't even read a P&L, couldn't even tell you what profits were. I just made money and spent money, and that was the business. Yep. And so when those collapsed, and I say collapsed, but that's a very dramatic term. It was really like it's kind of like putting a sick dog to sleep. Like, you need to, maybe you can get some more years out of your pet, but it's the humane thing to do. And so that's what happened with my creative agency. Is I had a partner, he was actually located in Argentina, and we mutually agreed and said, hey, this isn't working. That was hard because at that point it wasn't an exit. I didn't have a runway. I didn't have a plan. And I had to really do a deep assessment of my decisions at that point. Was I going to continue this entrepreneur thing and try again? Was I going to get a job, go back to there? But I had accumulated so much knowledge, both in the success we did have, the industry of creativity, as well as the failures and things we did wrong, that I knew there was something else. And so I think that moment kind of admitting that I was wrong, or admitting that it didn't work, and allowing myself to process that is what really opened up my mind and the doors to what then has become my greatest business success, which is my company, Design Pickle.
Yeah. So when you were making that decision, was it imposed on you by the lack of cash flow? Like, were you running out of money basically, or were you floating around and you say, you know what, I'm looking at it, it's not going to go anywhere. Let's put that dog down. As you said, like what? Because a lot of people like say, look, I failed, but until the last moment, they don't really realize it failed until literally the credit card doesn't work anymore. So.
Yeah, no, we didn't get to that point. This is why I say it was humane, because the agency model I had at the time was a very small boutique style with very large clients. So our engagements were 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures with just a single client. And we're talking design work, creativity, branding, marketing, digital. So what really was the trigger was one summer in 2013. Within 3 weeks, I lost $1 million of contracted revenue. This was like planning the rest of my years. The summer, I remember it very clearly because it just was like, there was all reasons that kind of were decisions that were made just because, like one client had gotten a new leader. Yeah.
So it wasn't like there's some technology that came into the market and completely changed your business or your direction. It actually was just luck or just a perfect storm when a bunch of very large clients said no to you anymore?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, one of the 3 clients, we were just doing a bad job and he was fed up, like delays, timelines. So, I can swallow that one. The other 2 were simply the direction of the wind. One client got a new vice president of marketing. He loved our work. He had his own team he was bringing in, so we were done. Another client, we'd been working for 6 months on a big rebranding, a whole company product rebranding. We presented it. We were about to launch the brand, move into the next phase, and they got cold feet and just said, yeah, no, we don't want to do this. And they walked away from their contract. And then the third one was like, you guys suck. So that one I understood. But like, what am I going to do? Like sue them? I don't even know if I had like really good contracts at the time. Like it was just like beyond my capabilities to navigate any sort of enforcement. But that was the most dramatic example, but that happened all the time, like in smaller chunks and versions. We'd lose a client, we gain a client. So we were always just treading water, and some days our head was above water and some days I was drowning, but I was never too far below the surface. So it was like easy to kind of do that up and down, up and down, up and down. But then as you get, when you're treading, I just became exhausted. I was like, look, this isn't working for me. There's got to be something else. And so we were actually in a decently stable spot when I brought up the idea of us parting ways and closing the business. And I'm still friends with my partner today. Like we talk all the time on WhatsApp and connect, and we mutually knew that this wasn't working, and we had a quick wrap up, and then it was like, now what the heck am I going to do?
Yeah. And you were fed up with the partnership and the style of working together, even though you're friends. Were you fed up with the kind of business you built, or did you see a different vision? You say, I should have, if it was up to me, if I was the captain of the ship, I would have moved it a different direction because the industry is changing or because my vision is changing, and this partner is the wrong partner to move to that direction with.
No, in fact, I thank my partner, Federico, for so much patience and knowledge. And, I mentioned I didn't know how to read a P&L. He taught me how to read a P&L. Like I didn't know about job costing. He taught me about job costing. Like he taught me so much. And actually, because our creativity and the partnership was structured where our design work was being done in Argentina, it was me opening my mind to the idea of international creatives, which now is the backbone of Design Pickle. So it led into it. But it was the business model, like it was so heavily weighted on such few clients. The work was very one-off, bespoke. Everything was unique. There was no documentations. There was no processes. If something went great, we didn't really know why, but we were stoked. And if something went wrong, we didn't really know why, and we were frustrated. So I just knew that this thing that, and this was my agency. I know there are plenty of other success stories in the agency world. But for me at that moment, it was like this business model, this structure, what we're doing, I just don't see a future that doesn't drive me, totally insane. But the relationship, the partnership, everything was great. And I think it was to my partner's credit that he was so supportive of us just kind of wrapping it up, because he had invested a lot of time and energy into this partnership, and a lot was on me to make it succeed. He did the design, I managed the sales and clients, and I wasn't doing a great job, but he understood. So I was thankful for that, as I know some partnerships don't always end so well.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I think that's a typical process of maturity, because as you grow as a business owner, you become wiser and wiser, but you also have to understand that there's a need to share that knowledge with the system, not with just in your mind, with your head, the whole thing. So you can actually, analyze. That's why we did well. That's why we did not. And I think you caught it quite early in the process. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm relying on, okay, this time I did well. This time it's not. So it's amazing maturity. Okay, let's put it all aside, because I have a million other questions about your personal stuff. I want to talk about your book also. Your first book, you have another book coming out, which we'll talk about. But let's just pause for a second, because you really are, from what I understand and what I read and spoke with you, you're really a brand expert. Okay, so in a very simple, because everybody's talking branding and branding this, branding that. If I'm clueless, and I am clueless, what is brand from your perspective?
Man, yeah, this is like saying, like, what is food? Like, there's a lot of different interpretations.
Yeah. We won the Russ Perry interpretation. Yeah.
I think brand or branding is really the summation of how everyone that you touch, whether it's clients, your coworkers, the market, it's everything you touch, how it all comes together to share your vision and to tell your story that you want to tell. And sometimes that's done very proactively and people think a lot about it. Other times it happens sort of organically and accidentally around it. But it's not about a single, thing. It's not a logo. It's not a product. It's not a color. It's everything. It's like a personality of a business. And I think, when we think about humans and personalities, we see people who are very buttoned up and focused on, showing a certain personality and being something and connecting in a certain way. And there are people who, don't even shower or leave their house very often. And that's their personality. Yeah, their brand. So it is the personality of a business. But I also think there's generally with good branding, an intention, something that you're wanting to change, you're wanting to impact. You could say sell, but I think those are kind of cheap brands and not very long lasting, and that are focused just about the dollar exchange to sell a product or service. So over time, it's for me and starting a new company after doing 10 years of branding, I wanted my next thing, which has become my current thing also, to have a brand that just was approachable and people could connect with. And so everything we did, from the logo, from the name, from the marketing copy to the ads, just always thought about that, always was trying to accomplish this personality that was intended from the very beginning.
Yeah, but I think the reason why you're successful is because you understand branding first, and then design came as an extension of that. But I want to start with the branding part, because if I come to you and I'm not clear about my own brand, I'm just like I ran a business, I'm running a coffee shop, or I'm building real estate, or I'm a tech company, whatever it is, right? And I come to you and I said, help me design the brand. Here's my two questions. One is, what questions do you actually ask to understand my brand? Because the design will be a reflection of my brand, okay? Because you're an exterior, you never met me before. I just came to your agency and said, hey, Russ, help me work it out, right? The second thing is, you need to, in a very short period of interaction, of time, take me not only just understand my brand I build naturally without even thinking about it, because it's my personality, like you said, in the last 5 years, I have to take me and elevate it to the next level. So how do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's just get one disclaimer out of the way, because I don't want to get in trouble with my team. Branding is a complex task and a project. And so generally design Pickle, what we do is we work with companies who have already solved this and are on the right path. But we do have a service called Brand Studio, which is it's for these types of projects because it's not easy. But I will take off my I will put on my branding hat for you here because I did this for so long. And here's what I know now, or here's what I want to know. Before we start any project, before we do anything, before I design anything, before I even think about it, I want to know two things. Tell me about your people and tell me about what's not working right now. Because if you can't share and I can't understand those two things, then it doesn't matter what is created. It just won't succeed. And here's why. The people are the brand ultimately of most organizations. They are the ones creating the things. They are the ones, selling, servicing, supporting, talking, whatever. They're using all the stuff that marketing teams create. They're out there. And I need to understand what the people think and who those people are, because it doesn't matter what is created. If they're not on board and they're not a part of it and they're not integrated into this process, then the brand will just sit on a shelf. And I saw that happen so many times.
Yes, of course.
A marketing leader would come in, we're going to do all this cool looking stuff. No one cares. So you got to enroll the people. The other thing is what's not working, because I'll tell you what, a lot of people want to do branding when actually nothing's really broken with their brand. It's actually a different problem that they're trying to solve. And they think, hey, if we update our look and feel, if we update our creativity or whatever goes into those projects, that's going to solve our problem.
It's
so
a
I really
gold ring
know,
on a pig, right? Basically, it's like, if I
like
only
it's
solve the
like
branding, it's still like, I remember when Uber went through a complete transformation, they thought that they changed colors and no, they had to change the culture and interaction with customers before the branding, because if you just change the branding, people can smell it. It's not authentic. It's like, oh, you changed the logo, but you're still a terrible company. So why would I work with you? And then they feel cheated. You try to pull a cheap one on me by changing the logo or something like that, right?
And let's go back to the Uber example, because when Dara became CEO, he was not liked at all. Like there were so many stories of like how different he was. And obviously he was replacing the founder. Travis had some controversy, but either way, he was, such a cultural part of things. But like the brand shift started with the new leader and the people that came around them. And so I think that's why it's important to understand the people and then like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? I will share a personal example because we actually went through a rebranding project at Design Pickle this year, 2025. The reason we did that was because we saw how much confusion what we were doing, as well as the competitor landscape, the rise of AI tools, and all of these things. We saw materially there being a very large confusion between what was perceived in the market versus what we actually did and sold. And that gap generally is a branding problem. You're saying one thing, but what people experience or get in value is different. However, if you came to me and said, hey, our sales are down, we need to do a rebranding, I'm going to ask a million more questions to really get to the bottom of the sales issue, because that could be 100 other things. And you don't want to rock the boat in such a major way if it's just like an email marketing automation tool that's broken or whatever, So people like I said, and problem.
and I think it's even, like we just said, I think it's even worse, because if you work on your branding without fundamentally, if there's a bigger problem and you think that brand is going to fix it, not only is it going to fix it, I think it's also going to create anger among your customers, because I think that they're going to be like, you are trying to, look, I don't know if that's your world, but Jaguar just changed their logo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. But you explain to me why. I don't get it, because Jaguar in the last few years have created this image of old, not reliable cars. Okay, it's the heydays of the 50s and 60s, the British-made car, all that stuff. Chinese bought this, that. Changing the logo or saying I'm going to take a year of not making any cars makes no sense to me unless you change, first of all, the experience of your cars. So it seems to me like people are going to be like even more angry. You eliminated the history, and now you did not deliver yet, and you're changing the brand. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, consumer branding and business to business branding are two gnarly different tasks, and I would not want to be in charge of consumer brands.
You
guess what?
You do B2B because you have both B2B and B2C, right? From what I know about you guys.
We are servicing. Yeah, we work with all types of brands, but I do know with large consumer brands, no one's happy when you change things. Like no one, like it's like a fool's errand. I think the thing is, and this is when you see these big brand flops. Look, they do more research and more studies than we would ever imagine in a lifetime of business. So when they make these changes, it's not just because like some interns like, hey, guess what? We need to change the logo. Let's do this. All right. But when the brands that relaunch and have this big backlash, when they fail, or any other subset of branding, whether it's like an ad campaign that's different or whatever, it's because they're really not thinking through the deeper why and or communicating that. So sometimes brands, they won't fail because they redo their logo and it sucks, but they have like a really sort of like misguided ad campaign and they're like, that didn't really land well and that was super offensive. What ends up happening is they just are trying to latch onto some idea, and they don't really dig into like, hey, why are we doing this? Does this really align with what we're doing? Should we really do it? They just want to like catch a wave, and it ends up
Bud
failing.
Light advertisement,
Yeah.
right?
All of those things that we see.
Crazy mistake, right? They misread the brand. They went with
even
the trendy.
Apple had one last year. I think it was last year, this year with the iPad, where they were like, like crushing all of these instruments and tools of artists into an iPad in like a trash compactor, and everyone was like that
how dare
seems
you?
Horrible. Yeah, like that seems horrible. The other mistake is when there is a big overhaul rebrand, they don't tell the story. They don't share the story. So when we did our rebrand, I mean, I was writing letters as the CEO. We recorded a mini documentary. We talked to clients. We shared it internally a ton to our clients first. Like our clients were the first to know about it. It impacted them the least because this wasn't a rebranding of anything other than the marketing and the sales material. Our clients, once they sign up, they don't see that stuff generally. They're just using the service. So, but we still wanted them to be involved. We still wanted them to see it. So, yeah, I mean, branding could be great, but if you skip the steps, if you don't tell the story why, you don't really understand yourself why, you're just trying to catch a wave, that's where you get yourself into hot water.
And after your rebranding, after Pickle's rebranding, did you add more services that were not there before? Or was it the same services, the same thing? Basically, but just I want people to be very clear about what I can provide and the value I'm bringing to the table. Therefore, because they were confused as to the words you used, I'm going to rebrand. But did you actually took that opportunity and restructure also services or manpower or whatever it is?
Yeah, well, look, I'll tell you the aha moment that kicked off the whole branding project, because I think it's super, super applicable for your listeners, especially if you have a sales team. Last year I was listening to sales calls, and I was discovering, our sales calls aren't long. It's like, hey, do you need design? We do it this way. Yes or no. It's not like a complicated sale. And the majority of those sales calls, the time spent on the call was explaining the plans. Maybe you need this plan. Maybe you need this plan. Maybe you need this plan. Here's the thing that was the mismatch. Generally, all of our plans included all of our services. There were some discrepancies, but really the plan differences were causing a ton of confusion to the prospect. So I was like, man, we shouldn't be spending 30 of 40 minutes trying to talk about plans and hours and this feature and this feature. We should be talking to the customer. We should be learning about them. We should be understanding their needs. And so that was the aha moment. And our brand was a visual update, a new logo, same name, but new logo, new website. The real core of our rebranding was redesigning our plans to just be one plan. So now at Design Pickle, when you sign up, there's just one plan. And the conversation now is, how many hours do you need? Which means I need to know, what are you doing? Tell me about your challenges. Tell me about your projects. And now the sales rep is getting to know the prospect. They're getting to know their needs, and they're proposing a more appropriate solution without the distraction of, am I on the gold plan? Am I on this plan? Do I get this feature? Do I get it? We just said, hey, you're going to get everything. One plan. Now just tell
that's the platform version.
How much
that's
you
a
need.
Platform. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, from my perspective, it's way more than just rebranding. You basically reinvented your business. You took all the lessons you've had, and you said, look, I got to get narrow, focused, and clear. The branding will be the exterior version of everything I have to do internally. It sounds to me like you really had to transform your business.
Well, this is the idea of the personality, because I was just in New York City. Sorry, I didn't reach out. We had a very busy schedule, but I'll see you soon. I'll see you next month.
Yes, you will. Yep.
And I had I'm going to put this hotel on blast, because I had a great experience. The Towers Plaza hotel. It was a great experience until the cleaners accidentally threw away my MacBook charger. Then I went into the worst experience I've ever had at a hotel for any issue ever. It was like I was the one at fault, and I kept explaining to the security guy and to the manager and to the housekeeping and to this and it was like hours into this, and then we had to go. So the brand are all of the experience. You can have the beautiful hotel room, you can have the beautiful thing, but you have this one bad customer service experience. That's the brand. So for Design Pickle, new website, new logo, but the buying experience sucked. So we needed to make sure the buying experience was cool and easy too. And so when you say brand, it's everything. It's not just what you see. It's how you interact. It's the tools you use. It's, it's the way people answer the phone, or do they even answer the phone?
And
those are all parts of it.
Are you involved in all of them? Are you actually involved in, if I come to you and hire you, are you actually looking at my customer service or customer interaction to see that the brand trickles in and trickle down to everyone in my company?
So this is where, Design Pickle at its core is a design service to support content marketing. So we are creating the content your sales and marketing teams need. We don't necessarily do branding projects out of the gates because of these types of conversations. It's very complicated.
Yeah, very.
We do have a specialized
shift.
We do have a specialized team that isn't marketed, because it's basically, when we get a client, it's very clear that they need a new brand. They may not even know they need a new brand, but we know they need it. We'll ship them to sort of the SWAT team. We call it Brand Studio. And they'll work with them before they get a subscription to Design Pickle. And these are all the questions that you're having. Now, we don't touch your CRM. We don't train your sales team. We don't decide your purchasing process. We really just look at the marketing brand, which is the visuals, the words, the colors. That's our sweet spot. But at the end of the day, if you are doing a full branding project, those things can then influence the rest of the experience, and it should. If you don't take your new brand and think about all the other things, you're doing yourself a disservice. Back in my old agency days, we would do everything. I would come to your office. I would pretend I was nobody and see how people greeted me and all of that kind of stuff.
Secret shopper.
Yeah. Today, Design Pickle is much more design. Oh, you kind of need a brand. We'll help you a little bit on the visuals, but even still, that may not be enough. And there's plenty of other companies out there that do this fully. Actually, I was going to recommend a really, 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 really good book.
Please.
It's called Obviously Awesome by April Dunford. And this is the book I wish I had 20 years ago when I was running my branding agency. And it's actually the framework we use to drive our own rebranding project this and last year. So if anyone wants to do it themselves, that book is outstanding. It's one of the best books on branding. One of the best books on branding. And what Design Pickle would do is the design part of that whole process. So,
here's where I get, curious about this conversation because I always saw it as different departments, like different, like customer service and all things. I'm very clear that if I called you and I say, Russ, help me with the design of my branding, okay? And I had this conversation with you, I would say to you, let me call you back in 24 hours. And I had to sit with my C-level team and really think, are we really willing to go down that path? Yes, Pickle Agency will take care of that, kind of like the design, the feeling, the look of it, right? But if I stop only with Russ's teamwork and I don't make sure that it's across the board, every interaction, and that's the example you gave about the hotel is such a good example because people spend so much money, and then one interaction with a cleaning person or a concierge or a bellboy or something can destroy everything you build and the hundreds of millions of dollars you spent. A story came to mind if we were telling stories. I remember in my 20s, Sue and I, my wife and I, went to Disney, and we went to one of those Disney, Orlando, and I couldn't find the car keys, the rental car keys. And I was like, I walked to one of the people, and it was a classic Disney behavior. They were smiley. They were like, yes, let me help you. I was like, okay, here you go. Like they have light in there.
You're like,
exactly, exactly. I'm from New York. I'm like, I don't know, like, why are you so happy? But here's the amazing thing. They walked us to the Lost and Found, and the woman said, here's the keys of your car. And I was like, oh, did you find it fall off my pocket last show we saw? Something. She said, no. You forgot it in your car. We have someone who walks between the cars because it's summer to make sure people didn't leave their pets in the cars. The person who walked between saw that the keys were sitting were left on the seat. We brought a locksmith. They broke into their rental car. They took the key out and brought Lost and Found, and it's waiting for you. And at that moment, they had me for the rest of my life as an extraordinary example of what customer service is. But I'm saying for me, it's a culture. It's not just about the interaction. So you can have a proper brand without backup or, foundation. It's disastrous, or the other way around. It's.
Well, this is why people are so important, because I can't think of a profound brand experience that I tell stories about, that you're telling a story about. It could be good or bad, that didn't involve people. Like I don't walk into the hotel, at the most amazing hotel in the world, and be like, wow, that stationery was so beautiful, and the paperweight, and then the printing was amazing. I was like, man, everyone knew my name.
Yes.
They how did they know that I like sparkling water at dinner and it was always there? Like, it's all about the people. And so this is like kind of controversial to say, but running a design company, I actually think the visuals and creativity of your brand is the least important thing. It's important because that's how people find you. And we're always comparing, like, we see all these amazing, great brands that are like Teslas and this and that are cool and polished. So we're kind of always comparing, but like, really the most important brand part that you should think about the most is the experience.
Yeah.
That's like coming from a guy who sells design, which shows you how much that I believe that, but it's true. And I think about, like, good and bad. And I think that's where people don't think about that. They're not like, how are we handling a lost MacBook charger that got them a 1-star TripAdvisor review because I was so pissed.
And the cost of such a bad review is, just last thing, and then you build a perfect bridge for the next conversation. But if you watch the show, The Bear. And the training that the cousin gets at the high-end restaurant, where he gets that it's about running in the middle of the night, getting a Chicago deep pizza and have this amazing experience. That's when you get what customer service, that's what the brand is like. I will do whatever it takes to have an amazing interaction. So it's a must watch for anyone who is curious and interested in, like, customer service, branding. What does it take? Interaction with humans. But okay, you said people are the most important thing. So that's a great shift for me to talk about AI. And I'll tell you why. Mm-hmm. I've used, please don't be upset, we didn't know each other. I used what's called 99 Design in my old company. Yeah, I paid $99. I paid $99 and I got 400 different takes, and the more feedback I got, the better it was from this person in Vietnam, this person in Pakistan, this person in India, this person in Berlin. And eventually I found someone who really understood what I was saying about how I want my logo to look, and they did an extraordinary work, and it cost me very, very little because I outsourced it to the world, right? So here's my question. First of all, in a global world, and I know you do a lot of global kind of manpower and talent, what happens when the world is so available and I could find someone who's very talented in Vietnam who's going to cost a sliver what it cost me here in Soho in Manhattan? And the other thing is, how does AI is going to shift that? Because you talk about people, but AI is constantly taking more and more chunks of what people are and can do.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, I think about AI a lot, especially design. But for me, it is a pattern that's been repeated many times before, and I'll share what I mean by that. And it also makes me very excited, and we've seen improvements inside of our business already with it, which is surprising to some because they think maybe people aren't going to want to use a service like Design Pickle. But really what sums it up for me is AI is a tool evolution. It is an incredible tool evolution that, unlike other evolutions of tools, is touching all parts of work. And we see that, and we could probably nerd out for hours on all the things we're testing and doing and whatever. But the tool revolutions have happened time and time again. And here's what the end result is. People are more productive. So in the lane of creativity, when I started was like, well into the era of computer design. There was an era prior to my career where you were using photography and laying things out and taking pictures and printing all of that. But when computers came, man, so much more efficient, you can do more. Then after that came sort of internet and the accessibility of other markets and other people. Now I could work with people remotely. And that was like a huge efficiency thing and economically viable too, because now I could work with a designer in Mexico or wherever. Then the next wave came easier to use tools like Canva. And now we're just seeing another tool evolution come. But what has remained constant through all of that is the role of someone to do the work. And the role that has existed, the tools are always changing and changing and changing. When Canva first hit mainstream was like kind of right around the same time Design Pickle started, but it was about 5 years in, people were like, hey, can you support Canva? We want you to do Canva. We need you to do Canva. Meanwhile, we're like scratching our heads like, hey, isn't Canva a tool you don't need a professional designer for? It's like so easy. Yeah. But guess what? People didn't want to become the designer. Even though the tool was easy, they didn't want to become the designer. They wanted to say, here's all of what I need to get done today. Do it. And now I want it done in Canva. It used to be Adobe. And so that's what we're seeing today. Like, you did one logo, but imagine you had to do your logo, your ads, your marketing copy, the podcast graphics, and you had to do that like every week all the time. You're like, what am I doing? Why am I have a better purpose, a bigger purpose than being in these AI design tools or doing all this stuff all day long, even though it's easy to use. And so I think for us, like, everyone needs to recognize that yes, roles and details will shift, but fundamentally humans are great at organizing labor. They're good at creating value inside of systems. And there will be a person in charge of creating the content and the visual content. Now, we don't fit a lot of clients' needs because they just need one logo every now and again. And that's where we're super happy to refer them to the tools that exist to do that easily. Where Design Pickle comes in, it's like, man, I'm doing this a lot. I need it consistent. I am finding myself like spending a lot of time hiring or managing people, or I'm doing it too much. Let me find a step into outsourcing this and finding a partner that isn't as big as hiring someone full-time. That's where we kind of fit into the equation of it all.
Okay, let me just...
but I love it. But I love it because it's like we've seen our retention improve since these tools have been released because people can use them to communicate better.
Yeah. But let me push. Even though you're my guest, I'm going to push back.
Do it.
And help me walk through it, because the difference between the example from the past and today is, from what I see, what I understand, and I try to ask every guest, whether a jazz musician or politician here, what's the impact of AI on their world? And none of them say, oh, it's insignificant. Everybody says it's significant. The difference is that until now, whether it's Canva or computers or whatever it was a tool. AI is not a tool. AI is a thinking tool. It's a little different. So if I have, look, you publish one book, you have another book coming out, and let's say, and you just recommended another book before about branding. If AI has access to all the books and actually integrated their thinking, not just access like Google, you can find it as a PDF, but actually integrate in the way it thinks, all the knowledge about branding, design, etc. My question, and again, it's more of a question than actually a challenge to you, is, do I really need Pickle to help me if I have this thing that thinks so fast, and has access to the most brilliant minds, because they all published some papers around it, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's trained to think like them, not just to copy paste or look. Canva is a tool. It's an amazing tool. My kid uses it all the time. My daughter, it's incredible what she does with it. It's still just a tool. Someone had to tell it what to do. With AI, you don't have to tell. You say, here's what I'm looking for, kind of this, not kind of that, and they will give you much. So walk me through the next level of challenge.
Well, I think you contradicted yourself, because you
not
still
the first
have to
time,
tell
not
it.
the last time.
You still have to tell it what to do. Like, let's right now, we're not going to use our words. We're not going to use our hands. We're just going to try with our minds to make AI design something. We can't do it. We still have to do it. Yes. And I think when we need to create, we have more choices than ever before, but it's our choice to create, and it's our decision of what we will create. With roles inside of businesses, I think the roles that will survive is when, even with AI, that creation task is the thing that can consume someone's day, whether it's research, designing, writing, SEO analysis. You'll have a super partner tool to do it, but if that thing needs to be done consistently and regularly, there will be someone involved, because guess what? There'll be a stopping point of the work that will need to get presented to some manager to be approved, that will have to be shown to a client. Not everything's going to be as slick and sexy as we want it to be. Eventually that'll have to get uploaded to Meta and Google and X, which all don't work well together. You have to do it all individually. So I think the roles will shift and evolve in how it's done and the speed and the value. But really, it's like, if I need this done regularly, and there is a process involved for creation, approval, decision-making, feedback, that's where I think humans will stay real core to the roles. And that's what we've seen for us, at the end of the day, you still gave, if you were working with an AI designer on your book and all the things you created, your logo, you would still receive something and have to give it feedback, and you would still have to, go through that process.
And right now it's quite mediocre. I mean, even though there's, from a video design perspective, they're fine, but it's not there yet. So, okay, another angle to this. Russ, how many people work for you, give or take, with everyone, with the outside contractors and?
Oh, globally, we have, I think, well over 600 people, and it's been up to 800. We've actually had less people over the years because productivity has increased.
Yes. So,
okay,
perfect. So do you think that, okay, excellent. That's exactly my kind of understanding of what you're saying. Do you think you'll be able to forget about, hopefully you're going to be growing as a business, but let's just, you stay with the same amount of volume. Do you think that because of AI, will you have maybe only 50 employees doing the same work that right now 600 people are doing in 3 years from now? I'm not talking about next month.
Well, clarification so I don't get in trouble with my HR team. They're not all employees. It's employees.
No, okay. Contractors, people who work with.
I think this is, so there's like techno optimists, there's techno doomsdayists. There's, the Terminator version of the future that everyone's. I am of the belief that companies will remain, relatively where they're at, but impact and productivity will grow, and headcount will no longer need to continue to grow. And I think for us, we want to support more clients with better quality designs, better quality experiences provided by the designers who are enabled with the AI tools today. We're the only platform out there that has legally, commercially licensed AI design tools across our entire workforce, which, for me, I want to see clients grow and that contractor creative pool, it will grow, but not as steadily as it has in the past. And for us as a company corporate level, we're seeing everyone's productivity go up. Like engineers, far more productive. All of our data science team, far more productive. Marketing, far more productive. My marketing team is less than half the size it was 2 or 3 years ago, doing 10 times more. Like, it's crazy to see. And it's original quality work because the humans are involved. We're not just having agents produce and write whatever and publish everything. It's always being integrated. So I think that taste, let's connect the two topics, brand and AI. I think humans are going to allow for AI to still feel and connect at a brand level, whatever it's creating, whether it's design, whether it's copy, whether it's, it's adding in the taste and the sophistication and what makes your brand unique. That's going to take some type of guidance that we as humans have, because it's always a little bit forward looking too, like, it's like, where do we need to be? What problems do we need to solve? Okay, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. So I love the partnership. And look, I'd be a bad CEO to say, yeah, I want my expenses continue to grow as we grow our revenue. Like, I would love those things to really separate.
No, it's more of an intellectual fascination and actually a financial fascination. Like, would you have a 20-year-old, right? You said earlier. Would you recommend someone to study graphic designing in college, or do you think it's a matter of the past to some degree on the entry level because of AI?
Man. You're like in my head right now. I was actually just thinking about this last week. I graduated from a state college. I love ASU. And I'm like, man, I want to go be an adjunct professor to just help out modernize probably what's going on there. I think some colleges will adapt, and the answer would be yes. Like, that would be programs that I would say go. And I think some colleges will just completely miss the boat and continue to run as government subsidized entities that just charge people as much as they can. For me, I would say study humanities, study art, history, study literature, study the things that help you connect and write and think and be creative, not the tools themselves. The tools themselves are going to just be democratized. But if you can be more creative of a thinker with these tools, that's where the competitive advantage will lie. So go in and study things that help you think better and to pull in more pieces into whatever you're doing. That's I think, the creative of the future, That's
so great. I spoke with someone very, very successful yesterday, and he said to me, not on the podcast, a personal conversation, he said to me, look, my message is twofold. Go to great colleges because they teach to work really hard. They demand a lot from you. And go to great colleges and study philosophy and history and English literature because it develops the brain. Because with AI, there'll be less and less technical thing you'll have to know. It's more about how you think, how you think creatively, how do you work with people. And so it's the same answer. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's
Russ,
a level playing field. Like, everything is going to get like, I have a chat GPT window open right now somewhere lost on my Mac, where I am coding a Slack app, an idea I've had for 5 or 6 years. And I'm like halfway through. Like, it'll probably kind of work. Maybe it will. I don't know. It's with new chat GPT 5. Like, that's crazy that I can do that. But it's my thinking, and like, it's a tool I'm making to connect with my team on a more regular basis. Why do I care about that? Because I read 10 books on the power of culture and the power of leadership and how this is improved by connection. And so like my idea came from all of my other information and knowledge that I've been consuming. Making it and doing it is becoming easier. So the creative of the future is not about tools. It's about their ability to truly create and think.
That's awesome. All right, Russ, last thing. I know you have a second book coming out. So first of all, because we haven't talked about it, we know I was planning on talking about it, but we went a different direction, which is completely okay. Love the conversation. Tell me about your first book. Tell us about your first book, and then tell me about the second book. And when is it coming out, and what is it about? Like, what made you actually write it?
So my first book is a bit of a bittersweet journey. I wrote it really discussing my decision to become sober from alcohol. I got sober now over 13 years ago. Man, I'm losing track. After 10, you just are like, I did it, and you keep going. But really how, the systems that I use for personal development, what really helped me create healthy habits and the journey inside of that.
What's the name of the book? I know it was published 2017, right? So like what, 8 years ago?
Yeah. It's called The Sober Entrepreneur. No longer in print, so if you can get a copy, it's a collector's item.
Oh, cool.
But the idea of that book was really broad, and kind of a cliffhanger, still really in the middle of the design pickle and the career and everything that we've had. And so I've experienced like 10 lifetimes since I written that book. And so I wanted to write another book that was still, about my story and journey, but really focused in on the creative, entrepreneur, the creative leader, because I feel like there's not a lot of books that speak to them in a way that is understands the business of creativity. So my next book is called The Creative CEO. You can, get a free version, a free preview of it at thecreative.ceo, thecreative.ceo. And it is literally a playbook for converting creatives into their own version of what a CEO means to them. And I
explain to me, what do you mean by that? So what do you mean creative? Explain to me.
I mean, even if they're running very large businesses, a lot of creatives they don't have a business. They have a very expensive hobby. And, and I say this also, my fiance owns a hair salon. She's a big hair influencer with all the worldwide brands. And, she has had her massive success in her industry, lots of challenges. And she would never think of herself as a CEO though, because she's like, hey, I got, like a dozen people with me. Like, I'm not a CEO. Yeah. So my goal is to take what does a CEO do? Is they create systems, they build culture, they create process, they build a great team. And you can do that at any size. You can do that as a team of 1, 5, 100, 300. So I really break down what that looks like, and then create a roadmap of applying that into your business one step at a time. So it's part workbook, part personal journey, part, philosophy and thinking about yourself in a different way as a different leader. But I'm so super excited. Literally before this call, I finished the final draft. I finished
congratulations.
I got I'm about to send it to the Amazon guy to start setting it all up and doing everything. Yeah. So,
that's so cool.
Launch date is TBD, but it should be out soon.
Well, of course, that's amazing. And it's interesting you chose a book, because book is traditional. And you, like, when I know Pickle work, you guys are at the edge of what's, like design and thinking. And then you went quite traditional. You went to something that's like, who published books? I mean, I just published a book 6 months ago, but I'm just saying, when I went to my friends in media, they're like, why are you doing a book? No one reads books anymore. Do an audiobook, do this, do that. So why did you actually go to like the most traditional thing?
Well, we will do all the other things, ebook, audiobook, okay. But yeah. I think there's some nostalgia, but also some, I think for me, I've been impacted so much by books. You can see in my background, I have a whole other library at home of things. There's something material, and with my first book, it wasn't like an international success. I think I sold maybe less than 10,000 copies of it, but it was like people would send me pictures of the airplane, like, hey, this helped me get sober.
I love that.
Hey, this, and like people don't even know. So I think there is, yeah, it's been a lot more work doing a physical book, and we will venture into all the new media formats. But I think that, like, having that and having that artifact is something that just you can't replace. So I don't know.
Amazing.
Nostalgia is probably my best answer.
That's good. Russ, it's really was such an eye-opening conversation. I really appreciate it. I had no idea what direction it's going to go, but it went fast and amazing story. So thanks for finding the time with us. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed it too. And I'll see you in person very soon, right?
Yeah, super thankful. Absolutely. And again, if anyone wants to get a copy of the new book, you'd head over to thecreative.ceo and find it there.
And we'll put in the notes of the show on Spotify also. Okay, so Russ, thank you. And have an amazing rest of the summer.